Good afternoon, Austin. How we doing?
Fabulous!
Are you guys ready to have a good time?
Yes!
I'm ready to have a good time. I'm so looking forward to today, this afternoon, this Q&A. This is our first time here in Austin, so thank you so much for representing and showing up. But now, I want you to help me welcome a man known for his versatile performances across film, television, and theater. Put your hands together for Academy Award winner, Mr. Richard Dreyfus.
Great taste.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Want to have a seat? We'll have a little chat here.
There it goes.
Now, should I tell the truth or should I bullshit?
Half and half.
Yeah, half and half. Half and half is good.
Okay.
Half and half.
And I'll make you guess.
So welcome to Austin. So this is my first time here. Have you been to Austin before?
No, I've not been to Austin. My trick question is, did Austin die at the Alamo?
Yes.
No.
And aren't you ashamed of yourselves for not knowing it?
I wasn't there. I wasn't there.
He wasn't there.
No.
This is a man who knows some history. Stone him.
So I've heard lots of great things about Austin and its food. Where are some places that Richard Dreyfus should go to eat around here?
Torchies.
Where?
Torchies Tacos.
Targie's Tacos.
Torchies.
Torchies.
Forchies Tacos. Okay,
No.
Forchies.
Torchies.
I don't know what it is.
Torchies tacos.
It's a little devil. No.
We're never going to get there.
Torchy.
That. Torchy. Yes, got it. Torchy. Yeah!
Everything good here Mexican or is it?
San Miguel.
Not go to where.
Chewy's is boring.
What do you like to eat?
What do I like to eat? Ice cream?
Amy's.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I like chocolate chip, chocolate mint. I like anything with dark chocolate. I don't like milk chocolate.
Got it all.
Yeah,
Mexican.
Pardon me?
Mexican.
Mexican chocolate.
Mexican chocolate.
Yep.
Chocolate with cinnamon.
Chocolate with cinnamon?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Mexican chocolate.
Y'all, it's 4:30 and I haven't eaten yet.
Okay, so ask.
So how these folks been, you've been at your table, how have these folks been treating you so far?
Seriously, I have the best group of people that follow my work. And the reason I come here, and this is absolutely the truth, when I was first asked to do an autograph convention, I thought, well, that's a little tacky. And then I went.
Right.
And I realized it was the only time I had the opportunity to say thank you to the people who had been supporting my films. And we never had a chance to say back, thank you for coming, and what was your favorite, why that, why this, and why that. And I have a choice every time someone comes up to the table. I have a choice. I can either have a great conversation with them and make less money, or have a brisk, efficient conversation and make more money. It doesn't take all the time. And so, and that bothers me every time someone comes to the table. You know, I have to negotiate with myself. I mean, one time, we just hunkered down and made as much money as we possibly could because I needed it. We made $80,000. Honest to God. But we had, if I had been in that crowd, I would have been pissed. No one had a chance to ask anything. And so that's one of the reasons why we're doing this now.
Yes.
That's a great way to look at it. Like, thanking the fans. So have you had these fan interactions and have they, I don't want to say changed your mind, but have they influenced your own opinion on your previous work? Has it opened up your mind at all and you're like, oh, maybe you think differently about some of the projects you're on?
I've got to tell you, that's the first time I've heard a question that is a cut above. It's a very good question, and it's hard to answer. I think I have, seriously, the best body of work of any actor in America. I think that I am proud of every film I've ever done, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 out of 70. And I'm not going to tell you which one.
Everybody is looking at your IMDb right now.
Piranha 3.
You're not going to find the name of a movie I'm ashamed of. Never. And I've made films where I disappointed myself, or where the film disappointed me. But I've never walked into a project without thinking that in one way or another it's going to reflect something truthful about me. And that's a promise I made to myself when I was 8. And I'm still stuck right there. And I love it. You know, when you find a film whose story, or whose writing, or the plot, or the people involved are trying to make something other than, trash. That's worth it. You spend 8 months. Jaws was 8 months. And Close Encounters was 8 months. But Close Encounters is a film that I personally think will be watched 300 years from now. And they will be asking themselves questions about why we made it the way we made it. And those are good things to get involved with.
Do you have, when not necessarily looking for work, but when evaluating the, things that come across your table, do you have a particular genre, a particular character type that when you see it, you go, yes, I don't care who is doing it. This is what I want to do.
That was, and one of them was Close Encounters. And when Steven Spielberg was telling me while we made Jaws about his take on Close Encounters, I remember thinking, I'm going to play this part no matter what. I bad-mouthed every actor. I used to walk by his office and go, Pacino's crazy. De Niro has no sense of humor. And I did that to everybody. And finally, one day, I said to him, Steven, you need a child in that part. And he looked up and said, you got the role. And I meant it. And there's a very interesting thing the next time you happen to see this film. The last 20 minutes of the film is the landing strip, And you'll notice, if you're looking, that there's one common denominator to all of the actors, all of the little technicians and all that. And it's that they all have a childlike wonder in their face. And he cast for that, so that everyone was able to go, like, you know, it was something you either had or you didn't. And if you didn't have that part. If you did, you could have that part. And it was great because Francois Truffaut is one of the great filmmakers of all time. He was starring in the film. And he has that in his face, this kind of wonder at the magic of movies. And so Stephen cast him for that part, for that reason. And he had one, I can't really tell this without kind of giving the ending away, but Francois had a line, and he had a very thick French accent, so none of us knew what the hell he was saying when he said this line. When I tell you the line, you'll hear it, you'll know what it says. When he said it the first time, not one of us in the whole movie knew the hell what the hell. And the line is, they belong here more than we. And I, honest to God, did not hear it. Neither did Stephen, and none of us. And that's why he was so great in that part. He just had this natural kind of wonder. No, it's great.
So that leads me to ask the inevitable question, especially with recent events on the news in the past couple months. What are your thoughts on UFOs, on on other intelligent beings?
There's a book I have which was written by Anonymous. That's what it says. And he says that he's a high CIA official. Who the hell knows? But he says, being an anonymous high CIA official, he says, I don't understand why people don't realize that they, the aliens, are us. They're us later. And what he's talking about is each time there's been a dominant animal, like when the dinosaurs ruled the earth for 500 million years, and would have continued had they not been struck by the meteor. That's called an extinction event. And right now, the extinction event of right now is us, because we will be the ones that cause the end of this cycle. And this man in this book says, it takes so long for a civilization to develop intergalactic travel, for instance, that he's absolutely convinced that in a previous extinction, in a previous dominant life form, we developed intergalactic travel, and we sent them off. And that's an extraordinary amount of time. And when they decided to come back, they didn't realize that everyone from their time was dead for millions of years. And they came back and saw one of those golden arches. What's happening here? Well, it's us. But they don't recognize us and we don't recognize them. But they are a former dominant life form from Earth. And they come back. And we, of course, immediately shoot them down, dissect them, and probably eat them. We're so crazy, aren't we? Anyway, that's what I think.
You mentioned something earlier. You mentioned something that since you were 8 years old. So I have to ask you about something. Around that time, you moved from Brooklyn to LA. What kind of culture shock was that for a 9-year-old boy going from Brooklyn to LA?
I left Brooklyn when I was 2.
2.
And I lived in Bayside, Queens, which meant that I lived in the heart of the American Communist movement. And all of the people I knew were communists and socialists, and people loved America and the Constitution. I mean, you have never, ever, you would never have to be convinced of the passion that these kids, poor kids from Brooklyn, went off to fight Hitler because they understood Hitler and they had a great education and they came back to being American communists or American socialists. And I said to my mother once, why were you a socialist and not a communist? And she said, better donuts. and my father was, he owned a company that made plastic shields for the Navy's artillery.
Oh, wow.
And the FBI came to the house one day to interview my mother and me, because I was home. And there was a young FBI agent and an old FBI. The older guy had no sense of humor, and no imagination. And so he says, one of them said to my mother, mind if we ask you some questions? She said, no. And they said to me, so your mother was a member of the sane nuclear policy, and she wrote the phrase, war is bad for all living things, or something like that. It was a phrase of the Vietnam era. And very political, very, very political. My father, he says, made gun shields for the Navy. Did that breed any discontent in the house? And I said, no, because my father helped the anti-war effort by making his gun shields badly. My mother dug her fingers into my arm until I bled. And I said I was kidding. And the older FBI agent, he went from this to... And the young guy said, he's kidding. So I grew up in the left of the left of the left. They weren't intellectuals, they were kids who lived through the Depression. They didn't have college yet. They were given college by the government of the United States for a job well done after World War II. And that was the GI Bill of Rights. And my mother was very important in the passing of that. But we are so different now that when it was up for further extension,
Right.
The Republican Party brought Robert Dole back from retirement, and Robert Dole had been a hero of World War II, and he had also been a Republican majority leader for years and years. And they brought him back to honor him. And Bill Santorum, arch conservative, looking right at Dole and complimenting him on his bravery and all that, then proceeds to destroy the GI Bill of Rights and not re-up it. And it was one of those moments when you realize someone's lost their mind here. Who is it? It's Bill Santorum, and it's the conservatives of the Republican Party. Because, you know, they took normal citizens and turned them into the greatest army ever. And that means they taught you how to kill people. And we're still paying for this. And I remember my horror, and I was 20 or something. I was horrified. And Dole must have been poleaxed. But there was something so obvious and selfish and wrong about what the government had done and what the government was no more willing to do. And it tells you the difference between, well, that happened because we stopped teaching civics. And we stopped. When we stopped, we didn't tell anybody. You know, when we had the first revolution that invented America, that was the biggest news in the world. That was the biggest news everywhere where humans were, because we made such a leap away from the usual disgraceful treatment that the poor got from the rich. And for all the years that preceded the American Revolution, monarchs and aristocracy simply treated the human race like cattle. And that's why there was a communist movement, and that's why a lot of things. And then we formed America. And when we did that, we said, you're just as smart as the monarch, and we're going to teach you everything you could ever possibly want. And then you run the country. If you want to. If you don't want to, you don't. And that literally was a promise we made to the human race. And it was the greatest revolution ever. It was more important and more glorious. It said that men were truly equal. Men and women were equal. And when we took it away, we didn't tell anyone. And what that means is we snuck it out of the curriculum of the public schools, and we stopped teaching history and stopped or telling the truth about it, and we stopped teaching how to write an essay and how to be polite and how to be civil. And the reason why I have grown up only feeling the decay of America is because of that. That the teachers were just told, no more of this. No, do not teach this anymore. And that's why we all hate one another, and that's why we think of people who have different opinions as enemies. We were a miracle. We were a miracle. And we have lost all taste or touch of how it feels to be a miracle. And, you know, it used to be that only right-wingers in the military were patriotic. I'm patriotic. And I was a conscientious objector to the Vietnam War. And I think the highest compliment I could ever pay this country is what they gave me in terms of knowledge and wisdom, and no country ever did that. And to this day, we are the only ones that have ever done this. And if you, I'm going to say, I hope to God you appreciate this. And when we took it out, we became as dumb as they wanted us to be. They wanted us to be passive, not participatory. They wanted us to feel like they were the boss and we were not. None of that is true. And so I wrote a book. I went to Oxford. I stopped acting. I went to Oxford for 4 years. I came back and I wrote this book. It took me 6.5 years. And it's called One Thought Scares Me. We teach our children what we wish them to know. We don't teach our children what we don't wish them to know. And so they took it out and made us stupid. And everyone here who's, you know, younger than me, which is everyone here, are going to feel that terrible chaos and obligation. I have nightmares that my grandkids look at me and say, how could you have abandoned us like this? Because we have abandoned them. We don't teach them anything. And we tell them that money is more important. You're from Texas. I'm from California. We have one thing in common. We're Americans, and Americans have always been a miracle. With all the bad things we are, with all the Indians we slaughtered, with all the black people we slaughtered, with all the women we ignored, it doesn't matter. We are still the most miraculous nation in the history of the human race. And we're not proud of it anymore. We've lost our pride, we've lost our sense of awe. And if we don't get it back, it's like we've all drunk the Kool-Aid and we've sunk to our knees in a spasm of stupidity, and we haven't gotten out of it or even thought we had a problem. We've had a problem. This country is not anything like it used to be. And if we don't get that back, after America fails, what then? Because it's up to you, not me, it's up to you guys and your family.
But part of that is education, and you've been a part of that. In fact, I want to talk about a project that you did that was educational in using pop culture icons at the time, and that is, has anybody here seen Funny You Don't Look 200?
I got Disney. I blackmailed Disney. I forced them to pay for this.
It is the greatest It is the greatest celebrity lineup of any project ever.
Yeah.
And how did you get, first off, where did the concept come from? Because it is about the Constitution. It is about you wanting to preserve and educate people on the Constitution. And then you got everybody in Hollywood to partake in this event. So how did you, what was the initial thought process, and how did you get everybody?
There is Sir John Gielgud is in it, Randy Newman is in it, and there are people who you would think, what is Richard doing with that idiot? Well, I'm an idiot. And I love my country. I really love America. And Walt Disney loved America. And Walt Disney was an anti-Semite, and Walt Disney was a goofball. But I don't care. He loved America. And he taught about it every week that you watched his show. And we brought people who had only one thing in common. We built an entire nation on people who were coming from somewhere worse. Nobody came here voluntarily. Nobody came here because they wanted to test the waters. No rich people. No rich people ever emigrated to the United States. Did you know that? We built this country on the poor, and we proved the point because we outperformed every other country. And that's something to be proud of. Now, anyway, yes, you should read my book. Yes. And two, whether you agree with it or not, you don't have to agree in order to be a great citizen. You do not have to agree. You have to think for yourself. That's true. And that's hard. But do it, it's fun.
So I'm going to ask, as our country gets to that 250th anniversary, are we going to see a different? Are you going to do it again? Are you going to put the band back together and do another educational video for us?
Yeah, I am. I'm writing another book, and I'm going to do it. I want my grandchildren and their generation to come to me and say, what should we do? Or say, I know what to do, thank you very much. And I'm not kidding. This country was meant to design participatory citizenship as the goal of education. And instead of that, we have passive citizenship, and we don't want anyone to think in any way that they run things. And they all, we do. We, the people, really run the whole country. And we just pretend that we don't. But we do. And it's getting worse every day. Really worse. And it became the goal of the federal government to find really inept and stupid people to run for office. Okay, that's a really good idea. Let's send some really ignorant dopes to Washington. Ye gods. Anyway.
I want to circle back around to something that you had talked about doing these silly conventions, right? And I know in the green room or at tables next to you, there's been people that have come up to you and been enamored and wanted to meet you. but I have to know that during either this time that you've been doing conventions or you've had tons of blockbuster hits, has there been a moment where you saw somebody, another celebrity, another actor, another singer, and you kind of fanboyed out, or you kind of like, you got starstruck? Do you have a moment like that that you can share?
Yeah. One was I was at something in New York. Thousands of celebrities were there, and I was saying, "Oh, it's so silly asking for an autograph. It's silly." And at that moment, Cesar Chavez walked in the door. Cesar Chavez is the guy who turned the immigrant labor force into power.
Yeah.
And I found myself asking for his autograph before I knew. I just could not, I would not leave without his signature. And there are actors, Matthew McConaughey, Matt Damon, they put their work at the service of the nation somehow. I mean, I don't mean to sound that pompous, but that's what they do. And Matthew, who I don't know personally, is an American. You could tell.
Yeah.
You know, and I swear, I'm very proud to say that I'm in the same profession that he is. And I feel, when I was 16, 17 years old, I used to hang out only with actors, and I would ask, well, what's so great about acting? Why do we do this? Why do you think we do this? And they didn't like to talk about it. But I made them. I insisted that we find words to talk about why we do what we do. It wasn't just to get rich. And if you chose that way to get rich, then you were choosing probably the hardest, most difficult way to succeed at that. And there was obviously something larger than making money in an art form that existed when we were all living in caves. It's the oldest art form because someone, after the hunt, had to tell the rest of the people about the hunt. And they would go, well, that's the first actor. We still sound that way. And now we're on strike. So, count your blessings. Count your blessings while you have them. Because now, you're going to see them die. You're going to see the loss of our freedoms and our art and the best of us is going to see that end. And boy, are you going to hate it.
One final thing I have to ask about acting, and again, not to make you sound pompous, but I did introduce you as an Academy Award winner. So I'm not going to ask how you felt winning. I'm going to ask, where exactly do you keep your Academy Award?
First, I'm going to tell you the story. I made a film. I was new, I was young, and I didn't know my ass from a hole in the ground. And one day, this producer walks up to me and says, Neil Simon wants you to play this part. And I'm arguing with him, like, and then I realized I must have sounded like such a dope, because Neil Simon was Neil Simon, and he was a great writer. So we decided to make this movie, and it was more fun than I can possibly tell you. And then we had made it, and then people came and watched it, and they liked it, and they told everyone else about it. And then it made money. And then it got nominated. So it was a series of, what's wrong with this picture? You know, nothing. And then my agent called me and said, you've been nominated for Best Actor. And I said, who else was nominated? And he said, Richard Burton, Marcello Mastroianni, Woody Allen, John Travolta, and me. And I said immediately, I'm gonna win. It's true. I said, I'm gonna win. And he said, really? Really? I said, yeah. And I had automatically figured they're never gonna give it to Marcello Mastroianni. No one even knows who he is. And Richard Burton, great. But the year before was the year he should have won it. And it really felt like that they'd missed him by a year. Woody Allen had made Annie Hall that year, which meant that he had made the greatest romantic comedy since World War II. And it was nominated for everything. And it got everything. And they wouldn't give him Best Actor because that was just too much. And John Travolta was incredible in Saturday Night Fever. But he was even newer than I was. So they didn't dare. I knew it in 1 second. And I said, I'm gonna win. That night, I won. And I went up. My mom was there, my girlfriend, and I came up to Stallone and he handed me the Oscar, and I turned to the audience, and you can actually see this if you look at YouTube. I went. And it was because when I turned to the audience, I realized there was not one person in that room that I knew or cared about. And I was an outsider and felt alone. And it took me years to figure out what that moment was and what had happened. But it changed me completely. And I had made bets, sometimes betting against me, when I did The Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz was a film that I made from Canada, and it was a great part, the greatest part for a young actor. And I knew I was not going to get nominated. And I bet $100 for each. I made a lot of money. And then I bet for me on Goodbye Girl. I made a lot of money. And the next year, I did this bet. Quick, tell me, who won Best Actor last year? And the answer was me. I'm sitting right in front of them. Who won Best Actor last year? And no one got it. Which makes you realize how transitory, that praise is. And I made a bloody fortune because I doubled the bet. And it was a great way to make money and a great way to not win an Academy Award. And where I put it in my refrigerator. It's in my refrigerator because I don't want to brag, but I want everyone to know. So I leave it to them, you know, if they get hungry, go to the refrigerator. And everyone does the same thing. They open my refrigerator. Jesus Christ. And then you realize it gets so cold that if you put your fingers on it, you might have to chop them off. So I did that to, what's his name, Ben Mankiewicz on the Turner Classic Channel. He came to interview me, and he said, "You really leave it in the refrigerator?" I said, "Yeah, go ahead." And he looked, and he reached for it. I said, "Don't do that." And he touched it, and it hurt. And it should.
Well, that is going to be our time. Are you going back to your table now?
But we can, you have any questions?
We submitted our questions.
No? Yeah. Yep.
Did you learn how to scuba dive when you did jump? Was any of that, were you actually underwater?
A lot of it was underwater.
Yes, sir.
Yes. And everyone on the crew was a certified. And I had learned, actually by coincidence, I had learned how to do it right before. And it was a whole world. When you're an actor, you not only get to play these people, you get to be those people. And I've learned about Beethoven and classical music, and I've learned about the law when I played lawyers, and you can step into someone's life and be them for real. And when I played Dick Cheney, people would say to me, "How could you play Dick Cheney?" And I said, "There's a little bit of Cheney in all of us." And there it is. So watch your step.
Thank you so much.
How good friends are you with Steven Spielberg?
I'm sorry?
How good friends are you with Steven Spielberg?
At the time, we were great.
Do you guys still keep in touch?
We've kind of floated away, you know.
One of those things, time?
Yeah, one of those things.